10,000 hours is an awesome figure that I actually never knew anything about. Just sharing a little bit from my life, a lot of people say, Ben, how did you get to be so good at so many different things? And the answer is I practiced, and I went through a lot of failures and calibration and error correcting in those areas. So for example, I've been very good at bridge and won an international bridge competition at I can't remember, age of 14 or 15. At some young age, I've written many articles and a few books, but again, if I look at the initial stuff I used to write, it wasn't very good, as everything is. Now, apparently, a gentleman called Anders Ericsson, you can see a picture of him next to a Superman symbol. He was a psychologist, and this man was investigating some of the aspects of people who are incredibly successful. And one of the things that he noticed is that they spent 10,000 hours of deliberate practice on getting good at a certain subject. It might be playing an instrument, it might be programming, it might be working with figures like an accountant, but that is the average. And notice I'm saying the word there is average. For some people it could be 9,000 hours, for other people it could be 13,000 hours to become extremely good at something. And what I'd like to do in talking about this 10,000 hours is just break it down for you, what it means to you in your life. And also, there's another thing, with 10,000 hours, if you spend it in one area and you decide to do something else, if that something else is a little bit related to your previous skill set, you don't have to do your 10,000 hours all over again. Okay, so this is quite an interesting aspect. First of all, before we go any further, let me just say what 10,000 hours actually means in terms of an impact on your life. So 10,000 hours, if you want to shortcut the whole system, is to spend 100 hours every week for 2.5 years. That's non-stop practicing whatever subject, whatever area, skill set you want to accumulate. Or, if you don't want it that intense and you want to have a little bit of a social life, 60 hours a week. Yes? And that 60 hours a week, I'm just looking at one of my slides, by the way, is equivalent to 3.5 years. Or most people say that to do it properly, 40-hour week. Yes? And that's non-stop. That's 40 hours for 7 years. So if you want to be good at everything and you want to have a good work-life balance, then 7 years is the average for most people. Now, that's it in terms of your life. But practice is more than just practicing like running if you want to become a great runner physically. Practice is deliberate practice. That means ongoing learning. In other words, having a coach, having an expert looking at what you're doing, and you engaging your head and thinking, I've looked at a video of myself, I've looked at some of my own work, yes, and I've compared it with other people who I think are experts. This is not yet up to that level. It's not only actively learning and calibrating and error checking and getting a coach, so there's a whole bunch of those variables there, but when you get that foundation, it's taking what you've learned and being able to think a little bit out of the box. And this is that awesome effect. It's not being good at something, so you've done 10,000 hours and you're very good at something, but to be able to think out of the box, to have it so much in you that you've also got contingency and risk built into you when you develop or do anything. So for example, in bridge, I was one of the youngest players to win an international bridge competition, my opponents are going to be constantly changing. So their psychology is going to be different. Their way of bidding is going to be different. And when you have 10,000 hours, maybe you're an accountant, every company is different. And you need to be able to think out of the box how you can deliver the most value to that company. So that's 10,000 hours. Oh, one more thing, building a multi-skill set. So just for example, you want to be a great teacher and you spend on average 10,000 hours, maybe you're not so naturally good at it, it takes you 12,000 hours. And you become an expert, and then you decide that you perhaps want to write. Well, remember, as a teacher, you've got to write a lot of lessons. And depending on the kind of writing that you want to do, you probably won't need to spend 10,000 hours being good at writing, because you've done so much of that already. And then you might also want to be some kind of consultant therapist, for example. Now, as a teacher, you're constantly consulting children or adults, depending on the kind of teacher you are. Again, yes, you may not need to spend that 10,000 hours. So this is how you can actually build lots and lots of skills without having, and I don't want you to shortcut that, by the way, because I think it's awesome to just practice and practice and practice. And one of the areas that I'm not actually incredibly good at is dancing. I have done my 10,000 hours in dancing. I've tons of lessons. And so for me, it might take 13 or 14,000 hours. I work with some top dancers who are looking at what I'm doing and so on. But I really want to do that. So 10,000 hours. Hope you've enjoyed this little chat.